بس اريد اشير وياكم القصيده. تمام؟ كلكم تشوفوا القصيده؟
اي نعم. نعم دكتور.
نعم دكتور.
Now let's begin. Welcome all. This is Dr. Amir, and today we will discuss Frost at Midnight by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Frost at Midnight. If you look at the title, the very word frost gives you an idea or a clue about the content of the poem. Frost, ice, snow, an image of death. Yes, winter. Thank you. So it's an image of of quietness, of lifeless, of stagnation, of midnight, also the darkness, also sometimes connected with death.
Yes.
Okay, generally speaking, a short introduction about the poem itself. The poem is one of Coleridge's short verses called conversational poems. Why it is conversational poem? Because in the text itself, he's addressing another character, his baby, right? So it is a conversation poem composed by the poet to celebrate the birth of his son, Hartley Coleridge, at Stowe in 1796. The poem reflects the poet's meaning here, Coleridge Wordsworthian attitude to nature. Like Wordsworth, Coleridge here looks upon nature as a sympathetic to his own mood and condition. He considered her his friend. Look, I'm using the pronoun her, referring to nature, because romantic poets spiritualize nature, right? He considered her his friend, philosopher, and guide. Look, in other words, nature reflects, or this poem, reflects a pantheistic view of nature. Generally speaking, the poem is speaking about the importance of the countryside, nature, in the formation of individual personality, or also in inspiring the poet to write poetry. Depicting his own childhood in a negative way, the poet aspires that his son would be able to enjoy a healthier childhood in the lap of nature. And this will be represented clearly in the second part of the poem. You see, when he will start addressing his baby, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The poem reflects the first stanza, of course. The poem reflects the poet's view one night in winter. The poet was fully occupied by philosophical thoughts while he was in his cottage. But I just want to comment, shortly about the use of the word cottage. He's a poet. He's not using words, randomly. Why he is using the word cottage? Why cottage? Why not a house, for example?
Because he's in the countryside.
There is in a village.
Yeah.
Countryside.
He's in the countryside.
It is a simple, it's a small and simple house, simple, not sophisticated, to refers that he's dwelling outside the city, outside the city. You see?
In England, Doctor, I think this village is Stowe.
Yeah.
It's a poem written at Stowe.
Yeah, it's Lake District. In Lake District. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Victor.
So it is a small, of course, the cottage by definition is a small, simple house, typically one near a lake or a beach. The small houses that is located, opposite to a lake or on a beach. It's called cottage. This is to give you the indication that he is not dwelling in the city. So the emptiness he will experience, and you will see throughout the poem, is the emptiness of what?
Can you repeat the question?
Okay.
Please, doctor, can you repeat it?
We didn't hear it.
By the use of
We
the
didn't-
word, by the use of the word cottage, meaning he is not dwelling in the city, outside the city. So when he will be
Yeah.
looking through the window, nothing there, no, like
Yeah.
see, no factories, no cars, nothing like that. So it's empty. Loneliness.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Simple country life.
His son was asleep there by his bed, looking through the window of his room at midnight. He finds the atmosphere covered with snow, all covered with snow. It was snowy. It was utterly calm. You know, it was midnight, and the atmosphere outside was fully, calm. Not only that, covered with what? With the snow. The snow is an image of death, as I told you.
Yeah.
Kind of life outside the cottage at all. Nothing. I just would like to, invite you to make a connection between this image of death. It's not an image of physical death. It's an image of what's called spiritual death. The death here, meaning the inability of the poet to verse, to write something because of the lack of inspiration. That's why in this poem, are you following me, by the way?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yes,
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And by the way, in this poem, with the presence of two sources of inspiration, the poet comes back to life spiritually, not physically. See the point?
Yes. Yes.
Meaning he was inspired by the film.
دكتور عذرا على المقاطعة بس دكتور
يا مسلم please.
دكتور عذرا على المقاطعة بس الصوت جاي يقطع ما أعرف إذا جاي تسمعني أو لا.
أنا أسمعك واضح.
إيش فيك؟
شباب سمعوني؟
نعم دكتور.
نعم دكتور.
ممتاز.
نعم دكتور بس آخر فترة يقطع يعني ما أعرف إذا عندي مشكلة بس عندي أو عندك يعني ياخذ يجي واضح بعدين يرجع يقطع.
صوت يقطع.
اوكي
أنا هم الصوت يقطع يعني.
اوكي
يعني جاي توصل الفكرة شوي متقطعة يعني فلهذا السبب احتمال يعني المشكلة عند هواي طلاب.
شباب
بس هسه حاليا واضح دكتور.
أنا هم دكتور يقطع يعني.
شباب الله يخليكم بس نزلوا برنامج الزوم خلينا نجرب الزوم.
أنا منزله
نعم
دكتور.
نعم.
ممتاز.
أنا هم نزلت
دكتور منزليه احنا.
مو
Doctor, I have this program.
دكتور همين اكو موقع مثل الميت يعني اقدر
دكتور اتصاله أفضل من هذا الميت.
اعتقد كله مسموع.
استاذ يعني جيد الصوت يعني انا جاي اسمع واضح يعني.
تمام حيدر راح يعني I will resume the discussion. اكو موقع اوكي شباب اللي يمين دل الميت وين؟ من تفتح حسابك بالجو؟
دكتور نهائيا ما فهمت أي شيء من القصيدة من لحظة اللي بدأت الآن.
وهسه
دكتور
اوكي
واضح.
صوت واضح.
اللي الصوت عنده مو معناته النت عنده ضعيف.
نعم
أوكي.
دكتور. نعم دكتور.
هي
دكتور
مسألة
جاي سمعك
نت.
واضح يعني.
دكتور واضح الصوت ان شاء الله. 35
بس اللي يسدون المايكات ويسمعون عادي.
بدون المايكات اللي عندكم شباب.
دكتور أنا
خلوا
صوتي
الشرح.
يمي أبد ما واضح.
اوكي
أوكي دكتور.
اوكي لان هذا التاخير راح يطول التايم مال الفيديو وصعب بعدين نسوي له ابلودينج. اوكي now his son was asleep there by his side looking through the window of his room, meaning Coleridge, at midnight. He find the atmosphere covered with the snow. You know, everything was white snow, you know, no sign of life at all. It is a reflection of the poet's spirit, his ability to write poetry. He was not inspired. He needs sources of inspiration to write poetry. He was looking for these sources of inspiration inside the cottage, and he will be inspired by two sources. I will explain these sources. So it will utterly calm and silent around him, both inside the cottage as well as in the outside. Frost performs its secret ministry, and held by any wind, the owlet cry came loud, and hark again, meaning listen again, loud as before, meaning the owlet cried twice. You see the gloomy atmosphere outside and the sound of the owl in the owlet. It's a tiny little owl, okay? So it is all fearful and gloomy atmosphere, you see? The snow quietly works by itself. Of course, it does not need any wind to perform the work. It does not need the help of a wind to perform its work. In poetry, snow is an image. The snow image is usually an image of death. Okay? Everything outside is quiet, except the sound that comes from the owlet, meaning a little owl. The owlet is crying loudly, but it was so clear. The poet could hear, the cry of the owlet. I said here, there is a big difference between hear and listen. You are listening to me, you are expecting me to say something, but when you hear something, that thing happened, without, you being prepared to listen, you see? Okay, the word hark means listen. The poet is addressing the audience or us as a reader to listen to the sound of the owlet. It is to emphasize what? The stillness and the silence of the atmosphere, which makes the sound of the owlet sounds clear. So, are you following me? Is it clear for you now?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Victor. It's so good.
Yes, we can hear you.
And
Yes, it is
are
clear.
you? Do you think I'm simplifying the poem for you?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
The inmates of my cottage, meaning the members of his family, all the members, all at rest, have left me to their solitude. Left me. Oh,
Yeah.
it reminded me of the sheep and the remember the elegy written in a country,
Yes. Yeah.
and left
Yeah.
the word
Yes,
to me and to darkness and to me. I remember. Okay,
Yeah.
solitude meaning loneliness, which suits abstract musings. Save that, so nothing, all quiet inside the cottage. Save here meaning accept. Accept at my side. My cradled infant is an infant, okay? Slumbers peacefully. It's calm indeed. So calm. We have a repetition here to emphasize the stillness of the atmosphere. Silence. There is nothing, no sound at all. So it was so calm that it disturbed and vexed mediation. You see, sometimes we need what's called silence. We need quietness. Okay, to sit with us, to rethink of things that happen to us, right? But sometimes when this silence is prolonged or stay long, it would be like disturbing.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctor, can I ask you something? Dr. Amir, can I ask you something?
Yeah, please.
Some of the website, they said the idea of the poem, that one of the ideas is nothingness. Is that true? I mean, can I use it when I analyze this part of the poem? Can I use that word?
Can you give it to me in a context to understand the sentence? What do you mean by nothingness? I know it's nothing, I know the meaning of it, but in the context, in a whole sentence.
Yeah, I know, I got it. The context was about the analysis of the part. It said, almost, and I can't remember it exactly, but it's like the poet is staring out of the window at to the frost, to the nothingness.
Sure,
He's
nothing.
staring.
Because of course nothingness. Because everything is covered by snow. Nothing. You can't tell what is there underneath the snow. All white, all covered by white. You can't distinguish where exactly is the tree or where exactly is the fence of the house. All is covered by snow, you see? So it is nothingness, utterly nothingness.
I thought he was staring at the nature.
But it is the frost.
So,
but the poem is talking about the frost at midnight.
Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, in line for
Doctor.
the coach. Yeah, who want to say something?
No, go ahead. No.
Okay. In line for the poet shifts to the interior setting, to his cottage, to describe the silence of his cottage. He says that all the inmates of his cottage are at rest and asleep. Thus, the poet was alone, watching the snow from the window. The silence suits the poet's tendency for contemplation, of course. Silence, the normal silence, but this is an abnormal silence. It's very long. The word say means accept. The poet says that everyone was asleep except his child, looking into the crowd. The child is not only a symbol of innocence. طبعا in poetry, always a child is a symbol of innocence here, but also a symbol of what? Of life. And of course, a symbol of. I said before, the silence suits the poet's tendency for contemplation. Of course, he's a poet. He needs quietness to verse his poem, you right?
Yeah.
But here, the silence is not normal. It's unusual, abnormal silence, because it is a long silence, extreme silentness. Extreme silentness. That's شباب من تلقون الشرح مالتي بالجوجل كلاس روم، اذا تلقون اقتباس بانفيرتد كوماز معناته هذا انا شايله من القصيده ومخليه.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Long silence or quietness, long silence and quietness will disturb and vexes or confuse the poet's mediation. Now, to make the idea clear for you, he what's called present a contrast between the atmosphere around him and what he usually experiences, where in the sea, hill, wood, or the village. Okay, so sea, hill, and wood, this populous village, yani populated with people, village, sea and hill and wood, with all the numberless goings on, meaning activity, numberless activities, harvest and plantation and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, of life. All شوف around him, inaudible. يعني شنو? No sound at all, nothing.
Yes.
As dream, the thin blue flame lies on my low burnt fire and quivers not. The flame never يعني does not shake معناتها.
Yeah.
Okay. Only that film which flattered on the grate. Then the poet re-emphasizes the idea of the extreme silent by saying that the sea, the hill, the wood, the village, which are usually full of countless activities of a human and non-human life, activities performed by animal or human. I said human, non-human life. All as silent as dreams, are all as silent as dreams.
Yeah.
There is no movement in them. The thin blue flame also seems to be slumbering, sleeping, asleep on its slowly fading fire. The poet says, In this silence of nature, its motion reflects its silent compassion with him who is still wide awake. He's still awake, though it is a midnight, right? In the very last line of the above lines, the poet presents another exception, as he says, only, which means accept the film like the child is a symbol of life amid this silent atmosphere, as if fluttered on the grate. This film inspired the poet. Film is a kind like still flutters there, the soul and quiet thing. It is flaming, you know, it's moving, it's fire, you see. Methinks its motion in this hush of nature. Yani inspired him to think. Look, to think in his mind, but also write in his hand. So the film inspired him to rethink or methink. It's, you see the point here? Gives it dim sympathies with me who live. So there is a connection, there is a close connection between the poet and the film.
Yeah, there's metaphor here.
Yes, yes, of course. Sympathizes him, making it compassionable form. Many flames and freaks, the idling spirit by its own moods interprets everywhere. Echo or mirror seeking of itself and makes a toy of thought. Makes a toy of thought. He is now inspired to write. He is inspired by the film. This is the source of inspiration. So the poet says that the film still fluttering there in the grate, and his fluttering movement makes it the soul, meaning the only you unquiet, alive, or awake thing. This makes the poet sympathizing with the film, gives it dim sympathies with me who it is like the poet also awake and lonely. It, meaning the film, along with the child, becomes a source of inspiration for the poet.
Well, doctor,
شباب ممكن بس المايكات خلوني اخلص القصيده وبعدين نفتح الباب للنقاش. اذا مو زحمه.
Okay.
Okay, دكتور. With you.
Okay.
بس المايكات هنا وجاي يشوش رجاء.
Okay.
But how often at school, look, in the coming stanza and the coming lines, we have called a flashback. You know flashback?
Yes.
Yeah.
The film,
Yeah, we know.
Remembering.
the film reminds the poet of his school days when he was a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often at school with most believing mind, recently have I gazed upon the path towards that fluttering stranger. And with unclosed lids, already had I dreamed of my sweet birthplace and old church tower whose bell the power man's only music rang from morn to evening, all hot their day, so sweetly that they stirred and haunted me with a wild pleasure falling on mine ear, most like articulate sound. I'm reading the text now. Of things to come. So gave I till the soothing things I dreamed lulled me to sleep, and sleep prolonged my dreams, and so I poured all the following morn out by the stern, receptive face, mine eye fixed with mock study of my swimming book, save if the door half open, because he was expecting something. And I snatched a hasty glance. He looked through the open door, and still my heart leaped up. He was excited, meaning, for still I hope to see this stranger face, townsman or an aunt, sister more beloved, my playmate when we both wear clothes alike. So, explanation of this stanza. The movement of the film reminds the poet with his past experience. It brings the poet to the past, his childhood, during his days at Christ Hospital School. There, the poet used to look on the fireplace. That thin film of light. As a naive child who would easily believe in superstitions, khurafat superstitions, the poet or the child, I'm here referring to the child, believed that the film was an indication of a visitor. Yani the appearance of the film is an indication that we will have a visitor to see him next morning. Accordingly, if every time the poet says that flame or film, the past or his childhood, and he could feel the sweet visions of his birthplace. He also remembers the bells of the church tower, which produced the only music for the poor men of the place. Those bells rang from morning to evening on a hot fairy day, from morn to evening, all the hot fairy day. The poet said, when he was a child, his ears were listened to the bells sounds, which he then compared them to the clear sound of a prophecy of a future events. Then he decided to keep and prolong his look at the film, and this made him feel sleepy. And sleep prolonged his sweet dreams. Next morning or day, he would be thinking of unexpected visitor, friends, relatives, aunts, classmates. He thus became absent-minded at school. To avoid the punishment of the stern schoolmaster, he used to pretend reading by fixing his eyes on his swimming book. Here we have a metaphor. Swimming, meaning the words of the book are swimming because he's absent-minded, you see. His is clearly reflected by the metaphor, the swimming pool. Swimming book, not pool. Which means that the words in the book would just swim before his eyes. He's an absent-minded. But only when the door of the class is half opened, his absent-mindedness vanished as he would quickly have a look. This is because he was expecting a visitor as the film appears at night. He was deeply excited to see a visitor, and he hoped to see a townsman, an aunt, a beloved sister, or a playmate of childhood days when they were dressed alike. In the last stanza of the part of this, the poet turns to the second source of inspiration in his life, which was one, of course, the child, you see, namely his child. Like the film that brings the poet to his childhood or the past, here also the child will inspire the poet to think not about the past, but also about the future. You see the difference between the inspiration he got from the film got him to the past. Now the child will bring him what? To the future. In the following stanzas, the poet will speak about the childhood in general through the lens of his child. As the poet speaks about his child in this stanza, his language is gentle and tender. I quoted from the poem. Gentle breathings, yeah, beautiful baby, as he is describing his child in particular and childhood, which his child represents in general. I'm reading the text now. Dear baby, that sleepest cradled by my side, whose gentle breathings heard in this sleep calm, in this deep calm, full up interspersed vacancies, the gaps معناته, and momentary pauses of the thoughts. My baby, so beautiful, it thrills my heart with tender gladness. Thus to look at thee. So, my dear child, who is slumbering, yani sleepest, by my side. His child is sleeping by his side in the cottage. The poet can hear the gentle breathing of the child. This is to show the stillness. You know, when you listen to the breathing of the child, meaning everything is quiet. In normal days, when everyone is awake, I'm just explaining to you now, I'm not reading anything, student. Okay? In daytime, when everything is awake and the members of the household are awake and everything is fine, you can hardly hear the breathing of the child, right? But you can hear the breathing of the child when everyone is asleep at night, you see? The breathing will be very clear. So this is the point. This is to show solitude. He is very lonely and alone by himself and his boy at night. Nothing else. Only he and his son. His infant, we don't know the identity. This is to show what's called the stillness and quietness of the atmosphere inside the cottage, of course. But these gentle breathing are filling up the vacancies of the poet. Interspersed meaning scattered, yani his thoughts that are scattered, you know, the chain of thought of the poet, you know, the chain of thought. The gap in this chain can be filled by the breathing, the gentle breathing of the child. It's not literally filling up, you know, it inspired him to connect and reconnect his thought, you see? This is the point. It's not a physical gap, it's just metaphorically speaking, the child inspired to connect and reconnect and make meaning, okay, of his thought. The breathing of his child filling up the vacancies between the chain of his thought, he is describing to his he is describing him as the beautiful child, as he is a symbol of childhood, the word of innocence and purity. This is what a child stands for. The poet says when he looks at his child, his heart thrills with tender gladness. By looking at the child, the poet is inspired to think, thus to look at thee and think. You see? The film, you see, make the poet, you know, began or start thinking, inspired him to think. Now, the child also inspired the poet to think. This is why the child is also a source of inspiration for the poet. The poet thinks about the future now of his child.
Yeah.
With the example of the film does not inspire the poet to look at the future. It just brings him back to the past. Now the child will bring the child to the poet to the future. You see the timing here in the poem? We have a present moment, watching the atmosphere through the window, which is at the present, right?
Yeah.
And through the film, he gets back to the past, right? When he was at school.
Yes.
And then through the child, he moves what? To the future. You see the past, present, future connection in this poem.
Yeah.
Good. And think that thou shalt learn far other lore on in far other scenes. Now he's aspiring his child to be, acquiring knowledge not from the city, but from another source, from other scenes, not, urban scenes, not the scenes of the city, no, from the natural world. And far other scenes, for I was reared in the great city. Look at the irony here. You know irony?
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, Doctor.
Oh, he's referring to this city as the great city, you see? The great city. شباب بس شوية المايكات لأن paint midst of them and so not lovely but the sky and stars. As the word think in the first line suggests. شباب ندوز احمل المايكات إذا تسمعوني. As the word think in the first line suggests, the child inspired the poet to think about the future. Lore here means knowledge. The poet aspires that his child should receive his knowledge not from the industrialized urban cities, but from nature. Far other scenes, you see, referring to nature, not the scenes of the city. The life of the city teaches artificiality, really. هذا التصنع? The life of the city teaches artificiality, التصنع. Yes. Whereas the natural world teach spontaneity, العفوية. Reflects life as it is, not as people believe it should be. بس خلينا نعطيكم معلومة هنا. أنا اكو شيء اسمه رونالد بارث، واحد من فلاسفة الأدب والنظرية الأدب، يقول اللي يعيشون بالمدينة يعني ضحية ما يسمى ضحية النورماليزنج باور، نورماليزيشن. يعني احنا خلينا شوية بس اطلع من هذا الجو القصيدة. احنا نتصرف وفق ما الناس تريد، مو اكو مثل عندنا بثقافتنا يقول لك اكل اللي يعجبك والبس باللي يعجب الناس.
اي دكتور.
المجتمع هو يفرض عليك القيود، المجتمع يفرض عليك القيود انه تتصرف وتلبس وتاكل، ولازم اذا صارت مناسبه لازم تروح، ولازم تؤدي الواجب الفلاني، ولازم بعض الاحيان تعرفون اكو قيود. عيب اذا نسوي شيء، لا عيب عيب. هذه نورماليزيشن باور، هاي نورماليزنج فيها السيتي ارتفيشاليتي. Whereas the natural world state spontaneity reflects life as okay. This goes with the elements of romanticism, namely the concept of nature as a teacher. You remember in the introduction I told you one of the romantic elements is the treatment of nature as a teacher. You see?
Yeah, I remember.
Coleridge, crystallizes. You see? Coleridge here highlights this concept of nature as a teacher and this book. This advice stems from the fact that Coleridge himself lived in the city. I was reared in the great city, ironically speaking. Identifying the city with the adjective great is ironic here. He means the opposite, of course. The poet knew very well that he did not want his son to pass by similar experience with the experience he experienced in the city. The poet is suffering from the city life as he is dense, meaning suffocated in the dark rooms. of the city, where he could see only the sky and the stars, and was deprived from enjoying the natural beauty of the mountains, rivers, forests, and the like.
دكتور تسمعني؟ دكتور اكو فقره انا استغليتها يعني بضعف انك صار النظام ضعيف وصوتك يقطع. اكو فقره ما اعرف اذا موجوده بالاجهزه لانه انا فاتح البرنامج من الحاسبه. فقره اسمها فقره الشرح سيسي الترجمه اللي انت قاعد تحكي بالشرحه جاي هنا جوا يعني كامل نص الانجليزي بالضبط. فانا استغليت هذا الشيء بسبب ضعف الانترنت وجاي يعني احاول اقرا الحكي مالتك بدون ما احاول اسمع لان الصوت يقطع. فاذا يعني يحبون الطلبه انه يستعملون هاي الطريقه لانه انا هسه احسها فادتني اكثر لانه الكلام اللي يقوله يجيني ناس تكست مو صوت. موجوده هو هذا الخيار.
Thank you. عندي هذا turn on captions.
Yes دكتور yes. يعني فد طريقه انه شويه نسيطر بها على ضعف الانترنت.
Yes. Thank you, Ali. Then the poet addresses his son.
Doctor, I can't hear anything actually. Can they just close the mics?
Yes, doctor. I can't understand anything.
براء حسين المايك مالتها مشتغل. اسلام فالح حسين رجاء المايك. وطيبه المايك. Thank you. Now سمعوني تمام؟
نعم دكتور.
Good. Then the poet addresses his son.
Doctor, I can't hear anything and understand anything.
شباب كلكم ما جاي تسمعون ما جاي تفهمون؟
لا دكتور جاي يستمع يعني.
دكتور صوت واضح.
دكتور
we can hear you.
لا الصوت واضح وممتاز دكتور.
كلش واضح.
إذا المشكلة عندي النت ضعيف.
نعم.
Then the poet addresses his son. But though وشوف الإيتاليكس هذا archaic way to write you know, though for emphasis, you know, to gain the attention of the reader, of the audience. My baby, you, my baby. شوف الemphasis, you and my baby. Twice. You, my baby. Shalt wander like a prince. يعني if he will be يعني attached to nature and away, far away from the scene of the urbanized city in the lap of nature, هذه هي consequences. Result high. That shalt wander like a breeze. يعني راح تتجول كالنسيم in the lap of nature. By lakes and sandy shores, beneath the crags of ancient mountains and beneath the clouds which image in their both lake and shores and mountain crags, and so shalt those even hear the lovely caves and sounds intelligible of the eternal language which thy God utters, who from eternity doth teach himself in all the things in himself, great universal teacher. He shall mold thy spirit, thy grieving makes ask. The poet says, but thou, but you, which means you, meaning the poor child. He is hoping that his child will have a totally different life experience and be wandering in the lap of nature like a breeze, near the lakes, sandy shores, ancient mountains, clouds, and the like. He then will have a healthier life away from the city and its social diseases. You see, for those who could not, you know, figure out or fish out or, you know, discuss the romantic elements, here we have one of the romantic elements, the importance of nature. How can we tell that this is a romantic poem? The treatment of nature. You see?
Thinking part. Yes.
is privileged here, is superior to the city. Okay. He will have a meaningful life among the natural elements and will find meaning in every natural sound or event. He will be able to hear the eternal language which is spoken by God. We have a personification here as nature is described as having a language. And nature is represented not only as a teacher, but also as a preacher. You know, preacher? Preacher, the one who preach you, who teach you
Yes.
religious
القس.
teaching. Preacher, yes.
القس.
Yeah. In other words, nature has a religious significance in this poem, you see. Everything in nature reflects the greatness of its creator, God. That's why I told you there is a Wordsworthian impact on Coleridge in this poem. Wordsworthian impact. At the very beginning of the poem, I told you the pantheistic impact of Wordsworth is here. And let me tell you this idea before I move on to discuss the last short part of this poem, okay? To clarify the impact of Wordsworth, it was Wordsworth himself who, you know, provided Coleridge with a detailed description of the Lake District where the cottage is located, you see, which served, or which is here, the basis of, or for Coleridge's description of the place, you see. This is one of the suggestion of Wordsworth. Now, what is the consequences behind the attachment that will happen between the child and nature? Yani, what will happen? Here, the poet, in the last part, short part of this stanza, gives us 4 beautiful images. Each image represents one season, meaning one image for summer and another one for winter, for spring and autumn. All these images are depicted very beautifully. This is, you know, this is to tell the fact that if you live in the lap of nature, this will be your life. You will experience these images. Whereas in the city, as we discussed before, Coleridge could see nothing except what? The sky and the stars. No mountains, no rivers, no nothing in the city. Okay, so now, therefore, yani, if you are attached to nature, if you praise nature, if you value nature, the result is this. If you value nature, if you like to live in the lab of nature, شنو اللي راح يصير؟ الconsequence هذا السبب الreason. Therefore, consequence, all seasons, يعني seasons of the year, shall be sweet to thee. يعني you will love all the seasons of the year. Winter, summer, spring, autumn. شبيهم راح يكونون sweet to thee, to you. منو هذا الذي؟ The child. Whether, طبعا child as a symbol, but to everyone who has, of course. Whether the summer clothed the general earth with greenness, or the red priest sit and sing. Red priest had a kind of bird. Between the turf of snow on the bare branch of mossy apple tree, while night hats smokes in the center, whether the eve drops fall heard only in the trances of the place, or in the secret of frost shall hang them up in silent icicles, quietly shining to the quiet moon. The last lines of the poem, the poet talks about the consequences of the child attachment to the natural world. Not only, of course, the child, everyone who will value nature and decide to live, يعني subordinate the life of the city to the life of the nature. بس هذا الستراكشر فهمتوه, subordinate something to something else.
Yes, teacher.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
يعني أنا أقول I subordinate playing game. I subordinate playing video game to, for example, reading my academic duties. The last lines of the poet talks about the consequences of the child attachment to the natural world. It exemplifies the meaning of nature from the perspective of the romantic.
دكتور ما نسمع، خلي تقول
دكتور
المايك.
كلش ما نسمع الأصوات، ما أعرف دا تأثر علينا. دكتور هذا الصوت كلش دا يأثر علينا.
دقيقة. وهسه
أي أوكي تمام.
سويت لهم ميوت.
اوكي دكتور اوكي.
Last lines of the poet talks about the consequences, meaning the results of the child attachment to the natural world. It exemplifies, يعني represent the meaning of It exemplifies the meaning of nature from the perspective of the romantics. For the romantics, all seasons shall be sweet because they have a deep estimation, يعني evaluation for the natural beauty. The poet gives us 4 images. Each represents one of the year season. And the second line, he refers to the beauty of summer, when everything is going to be greenness. In winter, the bird, red-breast, is sitting and singing between the heaps of snow on the branches of the mossy apple tree. The image of a smoky cottage appears exclusively in spring. Smokes in the sun thaw, whether the eve drops fall, heard only in the trances of the place. Finally, we have the image of autumn, and it is represented through the eve drops fall heard. These drops are shining as they reflect the light of the moon, quietly shining to the quiet moon. So thank you so much. This is the end of the explanation of this poem or discussion of this poem. I will stop recording now.
Yes, Doctor.